The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good afternoon and welcome back to a special afternoon edition of the Beef and Barnzy Show. As usual, I am Barnzy, joined by the inimitable Stuart Williams. How are you today from Pflugerville?
I'm really good, Chris. I'm happy that you are another major titleist. That was fun.
Yes, it's nice when it all falls together and you get a little fortunate and you take advantage of it.
Your number one fan is here.
My parental unit joining the show today.
So. Hi, Mom.
No, it was it was a pretty cool week. The PBA 50 having a World Series for the first time ever. A pretty cool event, something that's only been on the regular tour for the last, 10 years or so. So Dave Small has had, 100 events now, PBA events at his multiple centers. And we are at Jack 60, which has been the host to PBA titles and events here for the last several years. So Jack 60, obviously not confused me the first time because it was a PBA 50 event at Jack 60. And then we had a 60 event at one of his other centers. But it's a 16-laner. They've done a lot of nice upgrades there. Their host and staff, because they do a really good job. And so it was nice to be there in a great venue, a big venue, 196 entries. So one of the the biggest field we've had somewhere that wasn't Florida in my 3-year experience out here. So.
Yeah, it looked like it was a good week. You, Tom Hess, JJ, and Troy Lint seem to be the stars of the show.
Yeah, Troy, it's a lot like some of the other World Series where they got pretty good on the first pattern. The second pattern was tricky for everybody. And then the longest pattern was tough on the left. And a lot of them fell far enough behind that because it ended up being the highest scoring pattern on the right. And so Troy was the lone lefty to make it into the top 18. The other ones couldn't stay close enough. And then that last pattern is symmetrical and it's pretty soft on both sides. And he made a pretty steady run from then on and really just never took his foot off the pedal and went from, I think it was 20 something with the 32 games to go all the way to the lead. And just kind of kept motoring along. He didn't shoot monster games, but he just kept shooting 230 over and over and over.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you're new to the show, but yeah, this is a podcast / show. It's interactive. You can ask. It's a Mike and Ike. Congrats on the win, says Nate Garcia. Well, that's nice.
Yeah, Andy, you did. Yeah, I mean, if we're really recognizing game, the Masters was almost half the finals was left-handed, and then Colorado was favorable for a few guys, and then Hammond was. It was pretty good over there. It was pretty good on the right too. There was just so little volume that it didn't take very long to. The righties kind of ran themselves out of the lane, and so and I'm not really a big believer in getting even, so to speak. But historically, it's just really hard to get 3 patterns in a row that are close on the right and the left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big part of getting even. I just want the left to be shut out.
Well,
if you're new to the show, I'm Stu, I'm a lefty hater. I'm right-handed with my thumb.
We've checked all the boxes.
Yeah, talking of low volume, just before we get
Uh-oh.
a little more into your win, talking of low volume, Nationals patents came out today, like 6 months too late. So,
All right.
yeah, I know that was a petty joke, and it's an easy one to make, but
Yeah, there seems to be less and less people every year that are okay with it being hidden, and then when you do more extreme things,
yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like he did.
less favorable.
I was about to say, I didn't really feel like he did more extreme things. He did something very predictable from what he's seen. The team pattern was 42 feet. I think pretty much everybody guessed singles and doubles was 37 or 38 feet. The team pattern had significantly more oil. I think everybody guessed that too. And he put a little less oil on singles and doubles that he has in the past, which is kind of his MO. Like, it ain't going to be more oil. So,
Yeah, I mean, he was in the 30s before some of the other guys were.
yeah, but he's corrected that error in recent times. he's got back in line with everybody else. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's just so many parts of bowling that have been discussed today about the lanes.
Tony's left-handed, for those of you who don't know. So.
Yeah. oh no, I take advantage of bowling with left-handers.
Yeah. Cut your nose off to spite your face.
I mean, but yes, very cool. Not very cool for my man Crummel, but very cool for them. D-Ron and his partner took the lead in the last squad. That's happened a couple of times actually in the last 3 years. I think Chris Vi did it.
They shot like 1080 the last 2 games.
Yeah. Not quite David Samad pace when he took over singles. Did you see that? He bowled 11-12 his last 4 games. Oh, last weekend, not last squad. Okay. Well, I only saw it updated after it finished. So
yeah, Monday was the last squad. So I think they were doing Sunday, but yeah. We did have a league draft since the last time you had a show, I believe, about it with Flanagan.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed, but once I got kicked to the curb, you just kind of get with what you get. So, but I get a chance to bowl with Tommy and Billy. It's kind of a reunion with the old squad about 10 years later. So we'll see how that turns out.
Just need Fagan to come out of retirement.
Yeah. Well, JJ maybe get some more games in, so get qualified. He was on a few of those too. Let's see. How much do you have to pay to be able to listen to voices inside my head?
Ooh.
Yeah, translator.
I was about to say I didn't. I had a conversation with Chris after he lost his match to Hess, and I think that Chris is like, "Wow, that was strangely accurate." I was like, "It wasn't that unusual. I understand exactly what happened." And Chris is like,
"Yeah, I just hadn't heard anybody else actually say it out loud."
I was like, "Yeah, we've all been there. Oh, I can't lose this. That's the only way you can lose this, asshole. Why did you throw it in the gutter?" Yeah, we've all been there.
David told, yes, the Exponent, and for those of you who have watched the PBA 50, I've used it a lot. Not just a little, but it's been a go-to a bunch.
Which is interesting.
I've been slow to get to it a few times because it just doesn't seem like it should be strong enough. But it has been.
I was going to say, because it wasn't like you used the C4 like a massive amount. Like you used it, but it wasn't like.
Yeah. I just think it's a bad comparison. It's
I think the reason why people are making the comparison is because it's got almost the same weight block.
Yeah. No, I think the weight block's close. The colors are very close. The main difference is it's made in a different place, I guess. But it's certainly stronger. And it's been way more versatile for me than it fits where a benchmark ball should fit under the phase two. The Zen Golds are longer and quicker, but once they start to pick up in the front, this is in between a Zen Gold with surface and one that's shiny, I guess. It won't hook more than a Zen Gold until until there's plenty of friction on the lane and that smaller core doesn't burn up as fast. But
Interesting. Tyler says, which of the newer bores are you both using the most as of now? Well, it looks like Chris is on Team Exponent.
yeah, Exponent and Zen Gold both saw a lot of action last week. We bowled on 30 mils most of the week, kind of tapping against the glass ceiling. But we were still in front of the bar return. But yeah, it was quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've used the gold label a little bit. I actually picked up an Exponent out of the shop today to drill. I didn't get around to drilling that one the first time around. And I've only really just scratched the surface with the what's it called? Tour Dynamics and the clone. The clone seems stronger than I expected it to be, but it kind of sort of made more sense once I really looked into understanding the fact that it's a solid. I didn't really know that until the ball arrived. So that being solid and shiny, it's a little earlier than I was expecting it to be when they kind of told me it was the clone. I thought it was the clone of the UFO alert, kind of a shiny UFO, really.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty strong. It seems to hook quite a bit in oil. I think it's going to be useful when we can throw it. But
I got another one, and I'm trying to decide what I want to do with it. I can't decide whether I'm going to drill it stronger like I usually have my realities, or whether I'm going to sand it and take all the polish off it and see what it does. Because I'm not sure I necessarily, personally, with the way I use the balls, have a gap where that's fitting at the minute.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you. See you last week. Yeah, I think the week when they hooked, I saw a lot of the teal and some of the shorter pattern. I believe it wasn't the shorter pattern. It was the one that hooked. We saw more of it, the teal. So Hammond in there for sure. And obviously I wasn't at the 60, so I can't comment on that. But
quick shout out to your buddy, Knowlton.
Oh yeah,
winning his title. That was kind of cool.
It's been a good week for the TPK. The trailer park kids have had a good run. You had Knowlton. He won. Haggett won the week before. Two of the guys I hang out with the most out here. We had, it was five new winners in 5 events. For a little bit.
And then Hess broke the seal, so to speak.
Yeah.
So congrats to Tom. He had another solid week. I think top 5 finishes in all the events.
I think he might have been top 4.
Well, he finished 5th in the World Championships, so
there's that. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry to pick on your parade or whatever. But yeah, so yeah, it was cool to see Knowlton win. If you'd have told me he was going to win and that piece of shit old Purple Hammer wasn't going to be involved, I would have been like, no way. But he used a more up-to-date one. So congrats, Dan. Don is gone forever, I guess, until Chris gets pissed off at you again, and then Don will probably be back.
But, I wasn't even that mad then. We just thought he's the Don now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we got a super chat here from Micah McNeil. He says, congrats on your recent win, Priff. How did you compare your performance on the PBA 50 tour to bowling on the national tour?
Well, I have a top 10, so that's a good start. It's 2 different worlds. There's, I'm at the upper end of the rev rate scale on the 50 tour, and I'm in the bottom quarter to third on the national tour. And so the challenges are much different. How the lanes break down is way different. And so And then to some extent, some of the patterns are, although so far this year they haven't been all that much change. Before the first year, there was way more ratio on the senior tour than the regular tour. Not as much this year, but I actually felt like at times towards the end of the year I wasn't bowling that bad, but you know, 8 or 10 weeks of getting beat up will take the starch out of you a little bit. We had a good week at the Players Championship and got a nice. I think I got a top 10 there, but that was really about it. So Sue and I have talked about some things. I worked on some things in between. Felt like things were going in the right direction when the tour started back up, and so far they've been a little up and down, but more good than bad.
Yeah, I think I was talking to Timmy about this on the phone, and I just think that I think that it's very easy to get worried about the front part of the lane when you're bowling on the national tour.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just are bowling okay and you just let your swing go, you don't notice that. But once you start to not bowl well, you can't not see it. Not you, just people in general.
Yeah.
And then your elbow starts getting involved because, of course, that's going to help it get down the lane. We all seem to think that. We're all pretty smart and we all understand our elbow going out is a bad thing. Yeah, all do it when we need a better shot. So, yeah, and I just don't think you have that issue on the senior tour. And bowling is always a little easier when you're able to stand left of everybody else.
When there's oil left and there's hook right, it's a simpler. The moves are just simpler than they just are.
Hey, Adam. Yeah, we might do some challenge videos. I don't foresee a ball review video at Bayside, really. The part of the reason why we do ball reviews in the same place is so that you have a baseline for what the balls do. And then if you start doing them in different places, it makes it a little difficult. But, yeah.
On a regular basis, it's 1,500 miles away. So,
when do we get to see the clone roll? You'll see some videos on Friday. You may well be able to see the clone roll at the Lucy, just not by a male. We have that odd occurrence again at the Lucy where you bowl with your partner and there is a bunch of balls that I'm bowling with Josie. We're both on Storm staff. There's a bunch of balls she can't use that I can use and vice versa. So she can use the clone and I can't, and I can use the UFO alert and she can't. Make it.
How much was the Summit used and how did it look? Hess used it a ton last week, and it looked pretty good when he was throwing it. He struck a lot with it. He has a couple of them. There's one with surface and one that's kind of lane shined. I'm starting to play around with mine a little bit as I put a little polish on the one that was already lane shined to kind of see what it looked like because we're at Spectrum this week in this place. It's 20-some-year-old pro-am lane and a really high-lined center. So there's plenty of early friction here to try and give it a look. But
hey, Cliff, what's going on? Thanks for continuing to support the channel. Cliff is the Coolwick Don Coolwick. So nice to see you. I'm hypersensitive about the front, says Paulie. I don't know why you throw a missile.
I haven't seen the ball hook really yet.
Hey, Dan, what's going on? He says, congratulations, Chris, and awesome bowling. Hopefully we'll see you in Houston. Dan, Coolwick Donkey. Dan is the owner of Elite Flooring out in Florida. He sponsors the Lavery Brothers and Chappie. So he was super excited to see that they're all on the same team. So Dan from Florida is now a Milwaukee Pounder for life.
Thank you.
Yeah. How did the Summit look for two-handers? I don't think I've seen a two-hander throw it. I see Belmont throw a couple of videos, but that's it.
Well, you have seen the Summit with a two-hander. Ryan used it in Longview a little bit. He'd been out for about 5 minutes then. So
yeah, he used it with me in Lubbock. That's right. And then he's used it in Longview also.
There's times it reminds me just a little bit of an aspect.
Oh, okay.
That it's not quite, because it's not really that early, but it does feel pretty strong in the mid lane a lot. And so there's been times when it's been good, and when it's good, it's great.
Seems like the Summit is getting way more use than the DNA.
Oh, yeah.
Being polite, that wouldn't be difficult. The
Yeah.
DNA wasn't massively popular with the professional bowlers. I have no idea how it went sales wise. None. Not privy to that information, but like, I didn't really see many pros wanting to use that, which doesn't necessarily mean shit because some of the balls that we don't like are some of the best sellers and vice versa. But early thoughts on the tour dynamics. For me, it's going to be a little awkward because of how high I track and how little I get around it. It just doesn't really flare very much at all. And interestingly, though, I've actually had more success with it on patterns that had more oil in the front. Whereas when they had a little bit less oil, I feel like it burns up and then it's got no guts inside to make it get round the corner. So, so I really foresee this ball coming into its own once urethane is way less prevalent. I feel like its best spot is when you would use urethane, but when a bunch of other guys are using urethane, I feel like this is going to go away quite quickly. We do have a super chat here. Sorry to cut you off, Chris.
Yeah,
do you want to add anything?
I basically agree. I think it's going to be good on short patterns and difficult medium patterns, lower volumes where you're trying not to cover as much ground left to right.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the lower volumes though. Like for me, I feel like it could be good. I think it just needs like a really fresh back end.
Okay.
Like so we'll see.
Yeah, we won't know until I get to throw a little bit more.
The one thing that we're always asking for is different options, and this is definitely different.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Jack and Tom, regular contributors, thanks again. Congrats, Chris. Heard you say one of your superpowers is to do more with your hand and speed than a lot of the PBA 50 guys. I feel like this could have been a shot, which was, well, why did you change ball every game on the stepladder? But I digress. He says, what was the trick to tame the exponent's motion when the lane broke down?
Well, my superpower is to make the ball pick up, which now the balls in the lane do pretty much every week. So that's my actual superpower when I'm joking about it. Yeah, I do have a little more rev rate than the guys. There's a bunch of guys that have pretty good tools, and JJ has one of the biggest ranges of tools out there. But the one reason I went to the exponent was because I didn't have to really trick it. It's a middle ball. It reads the lane, and I was a little concerned because it flares less than Zen Gold, and the reality that I threw before that it wouldn't go through the pins. But when the first two shots both hit half pocket and the 6 snapped the 10 out, now I can get after it a little bit more. But now the pocket's big because the flat 10 shot, it didn't flat 10. And, that's really the key is when you get the one that hits the 16th board, the 15th and a half board, and you can get it to kick it out. Now you have a decent sized window at the pocket to strike. And that's basically what it gave me. It ended up picking up a little earlier than the Zen Gold that I was using. And then it was a little smoother off of it. But getting it to pick up a little sooner was the better part because Zen Gold was getting too far down the lane.
Ironically, I feel like if you'd have been bowling a righty, you might not have changed ball.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true. I just assumed that Troy was going to shoot 240 or more. And that game against Angelo, I was very fortunate. I got, several shakers, and so carry was good. If I had a flat 10 once or twice in his first couple of shots, I probably would have just went back to it. And I threw one where I got it in. I tripped the 4 or tripped the 9 or whatever, but it was high. It wasn't a very good shot. So certainly that score could and probably should have been a lot less. And so I felt like 220 wasn't going to be enough based off of how Troy bowled the last 32 games. And I've been in his spot a few times. It was pretty unfortunate that his reaction on the TV pair was not the same as it was most of the rest of the time. I mean, I don't feel sorry enough to give it back, but
somebody asks a quick question here. Are two-handed layouts as important as it is for one-handers? Yes, but using the right layout system is also very important.
yeah,
I think, especially now there's no extra holes, I think it's very important for the two-handers to have their shop study up on the 2LS system. It's not really the same when you don't have that thumb hole.
yeah, it took them about 6 months to kind of figure out drillings and things. So that 2LS system, I think, is very important for two-handers.
Congrats, Chris. Before a big tournament, do you tend to practice much? And if so, do you tend to work on specific things or just get general reps in?
Base game all the time, and then as you lead up to it, then more the tools and making sure you know what the balls and how they fit together. That's my general. Making sure that I can change speeds and change hands, and then go from ball to ball and have a good idea what they are off each other, and that will always change from tournament to tournament somewhat. But I try and get a pretty good idea how they fit before we get out there.
This is the ultimate it depends question for me. Depends how I'm feeling. Like, I'm very much into feel. So yesterday, I ended up spending 4 hours at the bowling center. I could barely walk by the time I got out of there because it felt like shit. And I was getting ball videos done to start with. And then it translated into a practice session and a couple of things I'd spoken with to Baker early on in the week and trying to implement that. And yeah, it really depends. I don't necessarily have I've got to work on this, or I've got to work on that, or blah, 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 blah. It just depends. Michael Benson says, just have to say Stu is a true gentleman. Shh. He helped an old guy pull his Arsenal from the El Dorado to the stadium. Very gracious and unsolicited. I want to thank him publicly. He has a shot in the top of my list as favorite bowler. Well, you're welcome. I know how much of a bitch it is rolling the balls from the thing. And when you walk in with no bowling balls, it's not really that difficult to roll 1 3-ball roller. So I hope it helped you out. We've got a raft of super chats coming in. Yes.
All right. Let's go far away. Here we go. Good morning,
Glenn.
Gentlemen. Aside from your own team, who is your early favorite for PBA league? Until they lose, I got to say that the Portland team has got to be listed until proven differently.
I mean, I was just going to go the obvious way. Well, obviously Chris's team. And then he was supposed to say, well, obviously your team, Stu.
Yeah.
And then
they got 2 of the top 4. So, I mean, how could you miss?
I mean, EJ and Simo's team has to work at some point.
There's the other 2 of the top 4. So
yeah, 2 of the top 2.
Yeah.
When the lane breaks down and you are watching your ball reaction, what exactly are you looking for in its reaction? Break point, energy, etc. The pins is obviously the ultimate cheater. So if you're hitting the pocket and the lanes are breaking down, then you're obviously looking at the pins. Look at the 6 pin, kind of see where it's where the balls, where that's exiting the deck, where your balls exiting the deck is always a good thing.
The ball's exiting to the right of the 9 pin, it's flat. If the 6 pin's laying in the gutter, it's losing energy. Versus when the 6 is going around the top of the 10, it's still plenty of energy there. Then it becomes more about changing the angle slightly of how it gets into the pocket. But when if you're a left-hander, the 4 pin, not getting out of the flat gutter, then that's when your ball's losing energy. You either have to create more rotation or go to something that's a little cleaner, a little sharper, so it saves more energy.
But in general, you just got to be careful to keep an eye on whether you feel like your ball's getting too far down the lane. And if that's later in the block, there's a good chance it's because your ball's burning up. So keeping track of whether the balls are burning up or whether that are a little too angular or too smooth. They're the main things. Robert says, congrats, Chris. Could you talk a little bit about the balls you used during the World Series? PBA
There's a lot of them when you bowl on 4 different patterns. But yes, I do make a list, so I can go through them all real quick. I really didn't use big balls at all until the Weber pattern had the most oil in the front of the lane. And so the short pattern I had pitch black, I had Cosmos, Duo, mostly a little bit of Eternity.
Yeah, you got to use that Duo a bit, eh?
Yeah, a little bit. It was all right. I have a lower pin. It kind of let you keep it in front of me, kind of stand up and get forward a little bit and use it on purpose.
You're one of the first people I've really seen actually get some, use
There's a
out
few
of it.
guys on this tour that like it because they can push it down there so it doesn't get forward. It just stands up harder when they're playing a little straighter.
Quite a strong cover. It makes sense. It'd look all right in a short pattern.
Yeah, and that's where I didn't use it much after just on the short. And then once you got the medium and long, then it became really Zen Gold, a low pin one with 1,000, a taller one, 5.5-inch pin, shiny IQ Emerald. Then the Exponents came in. The one I had to one off the review, pin over the middle finger, 5x2x3. Also wine. I tried the Rip just a little, the Infinite Physics just a little. I didn't throw either one of them much. And then at the end, I added in the Gem and the Reality on that Dick Weber pattern to use on the fresh and try and stay to the right quite a bit more. So and I used the Summit just a little bit, a couple of games here and there. But,
yeah, it definitely
able to make it look as good as Tom did. So
I was about to say, definitely the reason for driving. You never really know where you're going to go with some of those patterns, and it's interesting because I know when you bowled on that last pattern, we were talking about hustles, and you ended up using a Gem. So kind of the world's kind of a funny place.
Yeah, well, and they were really like the second pattern was. I would have thought the short pattern was the middle one. The middle pattern was the easiest, and the long pattern was by far the hardest off practice day. And then the short ended up a little lower scoring than I thought, mostly a little trickier. And then the medium one got hard, and the long one got easy. So you just really don't ever know.
Andy, thanks for the super chat. I am glad you enjoy the show. That is very generous. Don't feel guilty about only doing $20. That's very generous. Here's my question. In layman's terms, how the heck do I keep my hand behind the ball? I am so far on the side of it, they call me a spinner.
I think it's something you see a lot. And it's not like you can't be successful like that. Guys like Shota, Tommy Baker, and so there's some guys in history that have been very successful getting around the side of it a lot. But if you're really looking to get your hand behind the ball, your elbow has to stay in. And for that to happen, your shoulder has to be able to stay back. If it rotates forward, this rolls out. There's not much way to get it back in, no matter how strong you are. So this shoulder staying back, for me, a lot of that key ends up being staying real tall and keeping basically my center of gravity around my belt buckle. As you get forward and it moves up into your head and shoulder, then your shoulder becomes your power source. And so as soon as you start to accelerate, now this is out in front, this elbow is out, your hand follows it, and then it's almost impossible. So think about staying tall, keeping your shoulder back, your elbow in, and then going through your target with your forearm. And then all those, the few different things there, but any one of those keys might be the right one for you to key up to stand more behind it.
Says, need this special guest more often. He's quite entertaining and knowledgeable. But I think that also one thing that I think that a lot of people who I see have this, they're so anxious to try and make the ball hook that causes it as well. Like they're trying to get it's all about that hand position and how quickly you can get your hand, but you're still only wanting to go to here. Once you start going like this and getting your wrist in front of you, nothing good ever happens.
Hard to retain.
Like my man Pat Healy always tells me, 12 o'clock, brother. 12 o'clock. Keep that thumb. Don't go over to 11 p.m. Got to stay that side of it. So just don't be quite so anxious to really try and make the ball hook, because nearly every time you make the ball hook, even for me and Chris, it starts somewhere around right here. So really think about the ball on your fingers and like trying to initiate the hook with your fingers rather than with your forearm. So thanks again. Appreciate the super chat. Thanks for watching. Glad you enjoy the show. Surfboard Shack says, enjoy the show, guys. How can I keep my hand under the ball? Feels like a lot of strain trying to cut my wrist at the bottom of the swing. I am not a big, strong dude. So keeping your hand under the ball is all about flat spots in your swing. So if you want to see the greatest flat spot of all time, now it is help because he's 5'0", but Norm Duke had possibly the longest flat spot in the history of the game. It honestly felt like he dragged it along the ground for like 4 of his 5 steps. It's ridiculous. And that's how you stay underneath the ball. If you have a swing where it almost looks like that, as opposed to a swing that's late and looks like V-shaped, if you have the V swing, where you're super late, you have to be massively strong to be able to get your hand back under the ball. So for normal people, me and Chris included in this, the more that you get steep with your swing and late with your timing, the harder it is to stay underneath the ball. So
you have to be strong like this guy if you can get away with that.
Yeah, exactly. It'll work for some people, but just in general, all of the things that Chris spoke about just before we brought your question up, answering the previous question from Andy, all of those things about your shoulder going forward, all of that as well. But if your swing is super pulled down from the top, you almost have to pull it down. It's very difficult to pull your swing down with your fingers and get like this. You almost always pull your swing down and your wrist collapses because it's much easier to pull down once you hinge your wrist the wrong way for bowling. So the biggest mistake I see guys make is they just get so late with their timing and then you get on top of the ball.
You get there and then you have to
pull
it down and it's awfully hard to time it up.
Yeah, and all the things that Chris is talking about you leaning forward. And I do feel like he's actually watching a tape of me bowling badly. He's talking about dipping forward and elbow going and shoulder going. Like all of those bad things come from that. So, Eli, congrats on the win, Chris. What balls did you use throughout the tournament? We just answered that a couple of minutes ago. But
the last couple of blocks, it was Reality, Zen Gold, and Exponent, which, I know it sounds like that's a 900 global, but anybody who's watched knows that for a while I didn't really have hardly any global going down the lane in some different times. But these new 2 balls have both really fit in some nice pieces in the middle, and so they're going down the lane a lot right now.
I think the main balls that you use that might be a bit of a surprise to people are that Emerald. I don't know a lot of people have that in the bag, and I think the Duo. I don't know that we necessarily see a lot of those going down the lane. So kind of maybe just quickly run back on where you're using the Duo, because I think
the Duo is with the short pattern, and I have a lower strong pin. It's underneath my middle finger. Not a strong, a lower weak pin. And so I was using it to push it through the front and then getting it to kind of stand up and control the back end a little bit, which is a little different. But that cover I find to be pretty strong, and that core is medium. So it lets me stay a little closer to the friction. So I use it really the opposite of how I use an Exponent. The Exponent's kind of the same size core all the way around, but that cover allows me to go left and go around it. The Duo lets me get through the front of the lane, and then and it stands up in the mid lane pretty much on everything, and in any amount of oil it'll stand up. And so I used it on that to blend out the wet dry, front to back and left to right. The IQ Emerald's a low RG, doesn't flare a lot, hooks a little bit less than the Ruby, but a little smoother off the end of the pattern than the Ruby as well. And so it's just still been in my bag, and I like that one. I have a Hustle Wine underneath that I use when they really curve, and both of those come in handy at the end of blocks.
I think if anybody's looking for a Trend 2 replacement, I think the Duo is the closest thing to a Trend 2. It's a pretty strong core cover.
Yeah,
And
could buy that.
And yeah. So Michael, yeah, it's a feature you're watching on Facebook. You have to be watching on YouTube to use the feature for the super chats. It's just an option they have on YouTube, not on Facebook. Hey Patrick, what's going on? Hopefully you've had a good time recording everything that moves. What's the best advice you can give guys with shooting spares? How do you line up for X, Y, Z spares and so on? Here's the deal. I'm a point and shoot guy. I don't stand in the same spot every single time I shoot the 10 pin. I get up and I'm sure I'm probably pretty close, but I'm not. I line up, I set myself to the 10 pin and I go. And that's come from about a million years of practice and the fact that I've got a straight swing. For me, spare shooting is all about spare shooting is way easier if you've got good fundamentals. If you don't have a straight swing, spare shooting is way harder. And a lot of it is about practice. So for you, if you're going to continue to shoot spares two-handed, you've really got to start thinking about having your ring finger go forward to the target. Look at what Packy's doing. He has a really end over end thing. It almost looks like his ball slightly backs up because it goes so straight. Packy's actually become a fairly good spare shooter, like almost an excellent spare shooter, in fact. So if I was you, I would study what Packy's doing. Try and get that roll as forward as you can, because the straighter those spares go, the easier it is. Lobbers, my man, thank you. This was a guy who was old when I was young. Make sure you ask us a question, Paul. What's going on? Long time no see. How do you set yourself when you point? When you point, pretty much point at your belly button at it.
I use my right shoulder for me. That's so when I'm kind of doing this, I'm trying to get your chest is kind of the same idea, but I'm trying to get basically the shoulder and my forearm lined up at the line. I want to project it through the front. That's my take on that.
Yeah, I think that there's two things for me that I think are pretty important with spare shooting. I think that practice is important, but I think the right practice is important as well. I don't think that shooting 10 pin after 10 pin after 10 pin after 10 pin after 10 pin is very productive, because that's not what you do. If you watch the guys who shoot foul shots, they'll run around, then they'll shoot 2 foul shots, then they'll run around some more, then they'll shoot 2 foul shots, because it's all about controlling the adrenaline. And part of what makes spares hard is the fact that you're pissed off because you didn't strike. That's one of the challenges to get over. Anybody can make the 10 pin.
Right.
But being able to control your emotion because you wanted a strike and you didn't get one is a little more challenging. So
or
I believe
about what move you're going to make and being distracted by the goal in front of you versus what you're trying to do next.
Yeah. And just take your time with the spares. When you're practicing, just don't hit the rewrap button. If you're not sparing very well when you're at home, just don't hit the rewrap button. Just bowl, leave the scores up. I don't believe in not having the scores on either. People talk about not having the scores on when they practice. I think it's one of the biggest fallacies. I think it's a bit like trying to lose weight, but not writing down what you eat every day. You don't have any anything in front of you that says, checks and balances. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just the scoreboard shows, hey, 9 miss, 9 miss, 9 miss. Well, no, I didn't miss those. Sure looks like you did. Walter. Hello, guys. Good show. Question from the 3 brands, Storm, Rotogrip, and Global. What do you guys think are the most versatile balls for league on medium conditions, medium friction lanes? Thank you. Depends on your speed rev rate combination. In general, for me, I like a bit of a mix. I feel like a pearl asymmetrical is pretty useful for most people on house conditions. So the absolute is a good option. Chris likes the infinite physics also, even though that's a duller option, it still fits kind of in that range. I think Zen for me is a pretty decent league ball overall. I think that it blends out the wet dry, but gets through the front enough. Phase 2, if you have a little more oil and a little more speed.
Yeah, or Lane Shine Phase 2 is. I mean, that's probably one of the best ones of all time. Obviously, that's why it's been around for so long.
Yeah, but like I say, the conditions and the friction is all relative to the player. So, you know, a guy with a higher rev rate who spins it is going to see it as maybe he'll see the down lane as more friction than the front part of the lane. A guy who really rolls it is going to see the front part. So, if you're looking at something a little weaker, I don't mind the solid hustle. The hustle RAP. I think that's got a place. Also. So yeah. That
Yeah.
I think that covers most bases.
Yeah, I think you got pretty much all.
I would avoid the extremes just in general. If you bowl on a medium lane conditions, I probably wouldn't be looking at gems, probably not realities unless you had a lot of speed. DNA again, probably not. Just because those balls are going to burn up so much that like they're going to get so hard to control with the as much oil as you're going to have to the left of you. So yeah, that they would be my. I would really focus on the medium balls. Like they're kind of a few of my favorites. Phase 2 Zen, maybe this new gold label. Those balls along with the absolute. They seem to be the ones that do pretty good for me.
Yeah.
We have Paul's got his question in. Hey mate, do you think USA will be sending teams to the IBF Senior Grand Senior World Championships in Colombia in December, or will it be a similar situation with countries not attending the Worlds like in Kuwait?
I am under the impression that right now they will be sending, but I don't have any real information there. I think the Kuwait thing has way more to do with the reigning sheikh in charge being from Kuwait, a serious lack of information on how many teams, formats, money. There's a lot of questions there right now, and so it's somewhere between uncertainty and a protest of sorts at the moment. It seems so. I don't believe in Colombia. I don't know that there's that many issues, but I can't say that it won't happen there as well. I don't really know. So,
Glenn says, I have been gifted an Omega Crux at HB intensity and a nuclear cell. Which balls on the line are closest to these? So the Omega Crux, I would say, although it's kind of not in the line right now, I would say is probably closest to the infinite physics. The Honey Badger intensity, is that the black and red one?
Yeah.
The
core of the dynamics is probably closest, but
it's going to be a weaker version, right?
Yeah, the dynamics is probably, I think it's a little earlier and a little less overall.
And then the nuclear cell is probably going to be the clone, but it's going to be a much weaker version. Clone is probably going to be the closest to that one.
Okay.
But yeah, out of those, the jackpot ball for me there is the Omega Crux. The other two, I was like, meh. It's not that they're necessarily bad; they're just not necessarily. You might want to send Stephanie Zavala a message if it's a brand new one. She might be interested in the HB intensity. I think she was one of the few people who really used that one a lot.
Yeah. The gold label looks good. Yeah, not quite as good as that purple ball looks in yours, but well, it's we're coming around on it.
I was about to say that That exponent looked pretty good in his hands.
Yeah.
Were you not watching, Troy?
No reason.
I guess he only saw the back of your head that match.
That was about the only time.
Yeah, I know.
Running by me the rest of the
I was
week.
about to say, he didn't even wave on the way past.
No, he didn't. Not even a courtesy tap. He just gave me on your left. On your left.
Okay. he pulled out into your slipstream and was gone.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So,
Thanks, Michael. You're a gentleman. Troy, I was watching. Mario, if contracts allow, please make shoe comparison videos. Power players don't slide. I'm not sure that's true. Other sports have much more flexibility. Think Joe Grondin shoes with replaceable sole heel. No one uses Lin's or Dank shoes to bowl. I think that really, I think not sliding is a very unique thing within the sport. I think that it puts a lot of strain onto your knees. So I think that most people do slide. In fact, Chris Vi didn't slide, learned how to slide and became King Kong. So we do have a bit of an issue with doing comparisons, but in general, I think the main comparison that you're looking at is the heel products. I think that's most of what people use to, the terror's back from his day out at school. Most people use that. So that to me anyway, that's the key. It's like the heels. So somebody says here the new 3G racers look great. I'm by all accounts getting my pair tomorrow, so I will let you know. A couple of things I was interested in with the shoes. There's no longer a triangle in the back. That's gone. We have some new heel options, so I'll be interested to try those out. I believe they've also got rid of the ring on the sole. I think we've now got full soles.
all right.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting to see how they look. But yeah, I got the bright white ones, so I can go all AJ Johnson on you.
There you go. Regarding the new USBC urethane rules, are there urethane rules that conform to the new hardness rules now, or would one have to buy one in the new year for the new regulations? I believe there will not be a legacy list. As of yet, there is not one.
It's the PBA, it's not the USBC.
Yes, that's a very important distinction. It's just PBA national, regional, 50, and junior.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's at least at this point, it's not a USBC rule. It would be nice if all of us would get on the same page, but I don't know that. I don't know what the plan is there. Hopefully so. I'd like to see it happen in Europe and the Asian tours as well. But that's my personal opinion.
Michael says, hey guys, he's got a Gem, Black Venom, Venom Shock, UC3, 17 mile an hour, low rev, can't carry in a house shot, but better carry on sport. Why? I would say that probably you just got bad angles. You're probably not using the friction enough on the house pattern, so you're a little bit too much in the oil, and that's why it's not going through. Whereas when you bowl on a sport pattern, there isn't quite the oil isn't quite as, for a stupid phrase, thick at that spot. It isn't as deep.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of really just get off and use the friction more, especially if you're a lower rev rate player. When you bowl on the house shot, the friction is your friend. Find a way to control the friction. And I think that that'll help you go through the pins a little bit better. So Baker had an interesting breakdown of Troy Lint. There it is.
Troy may be late, but he waits on his swing extremely well. His breastplate always faces his break point. Fun to watch.
And then he followed it up with, and he must be strong. Yeah.
We're super happy that Troy's got it all figured out just in time. It's really working out for us. Him and JJ are such a welcome addition to the PBA 50 tour. We can't wait to see them again next week.
No, looking for flexibility, non-flat shoes. Oh, okay.
Looking for stuff with a bigger heel toe drop and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think he's looking for more of a sneaker type. You might want to have a look. I've seen a few of them. I haven't tried them on because obviously I can't use them. But you might want to have a look at the KR shoes. They seem to have a little more flexibility. I'll let you know what the new races are like. These are Tyler's real first attempt, I guess, at something different in the 3G brand. So I can let you know what they're like. The feedback I got was that that they were more padded. Mario's following up with, to clarify, my question was not to eliminate the slide, but to bring light to how flat bowling shoes are, and they could be made more flexible like running shoes, but still are made more like dancing shoes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you want more of like a sneaker type deal. Me personally, I have pretty flat feet, so I use pretty strong insoles in them. But like I say, for what you're looking for, maybe check out some of the mesh shoes. They're a little more flexible on the top, maybe not on the bottom in the same way. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Balls are much more fun than shoes. I have a ball fetish.
How do you explain Troy having such a great year? I've barely heard of him. Well, it's not really my story to tell, but since he's on here, he actually spent 20 years in prison no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know his backstory actually all that much, but he didn't bowl on the regular tour, and he's from Pennsylvania, and so depending on which part of the world you live
in, he wasn't talking about that either. He happened to write that.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, you don't have to watch Troy very long to figure out he was going to be pretty good. So he did last year. He was out there, tore up his hand a bunch, and so I had to change some things with fit and get his thumb kind of worked out so he could bowl every week. He was on the Mark Roth plan, and his hand was bleeding like every other week. And so when he bowled good, his hand was so beat up the next week that it made it hard for him to be week after week. But it's not a huge surprise that what's going on this year. I think he will give he's going to give all of us all we want for a while. So as long as his knee holds up, so he walks around like he's got a peg leg. So
Pennsylvania prison, what's the difference?
There.
Justin says, do you guys have your thumb pointing at 1 o'clock at release? And do you try to lead with your ring or middle fingers, depending on what ball you roll you want? I'll speak for me, and then Chris can answer this. I don't necessarily try to focus on where my thumb's pointing when I release it. What I try to do is think about it when I'm bowling like an asshole. Because generally it's because I'm coming over it. Like when you feel under pressure. And I'd thought about that thing that Healy was talking about keeping my thumb on that side of it. And then I've also, in recent times, been thinking more about Baker's theory about getting your forearm towards the target. So when it's going bad, you'll often see Chris or Sean Ryan at the back sort of like kind of tapping on their forearm to me, you know, and really like kind of encouraging me to really get that forearm going towards the target, which is a lot easier for me than other people because, you know, when you don't follow through, I can almost get my forearm to touch it. But yeah. And then in relation to throwing it, I always think about my ring finger, whether that's because I'm wanting to go like more end over end, or if I want to rotate it more, I feel about like the bottom, the ring finger staying in the bottom of the ball as I come around. So for me, I'm a big ring finger guy. I think that when I emphasize using my ring finger, usually it's a good thing for me. So that was my take on it.
Yeah, for me, I'm leading with my ring finger, and that's to control rotation. That keeps me a little more end over end versus when I'm coming around it with my ring finger. So Larry says Troy Lent, Haggett, JJ Knowlton, and Barnzy, you guys are the new house. Well, it's a bigger house anyway. So I don't know.
And you all probably own your house. or at least the bank allows you to own it.
Well, there's that. Penn State, State Penn, it's all the same. Sorry, Timmy. Attaboy, Joe.
Lee Lort says he leads with his pinky. Well, that might be part of the problem. Jim Pitt said he did 33 years in prison.
Do you mean Pennsylvania or actually? Who is just outside of being 50 years old that you guys are looking to see on tour? Well, I'm not looking to see anyone, but Doherty is probably going to be the most high profile. I think he's 48 and a half, or I think he's 49 by now. I'm not exactly sure when he hits, but I was under the impression that next year he might get to bowl some. So,
just a second. I have a good answer for this one. If you miss right of your target, what route usually goes through your mind when troubleshooting? Hook! Generally, when I miss right, I just yell hook.
Yeah, if you're doing that all the time, if it's consistent miss right, what's your fix? I don't miss right a lot very often, so it's most of the time it's a bit of a one-off.
Yeah, most times my miss is I miss left and long, and it just goes straight. In general, if I was to troubleshoot a right miss, I would think that I'm probably pushing the ball a little bit too far on the inside, and it's making my swing loop and throw it to the right. I'm sure that there's other options, like I'm late or whatever, and I should probably find out what they are, because Tina tends to have a bit of a right miss, and she gets pissed off with me when I don't have a good solution for it. So I should probably call Baker and ask him what is the solution for that, because he usually has a fairly good answer, usually a better one than mine.
I'm guessing it could have something to do with a pivot step being a little to the right of where it is in the second step, which makes your swing bump around it. But again, he's the expert. So
Jim Pitt says he was a prison guard. There you go.
Well, and Troy says, tell Jimmy to hit the gym. Maybe they were buddies there. I don't
know. I'm telling you, if somebody tunes into this show at the wrong time and then their internet goes out, Troy Lent did 20 years in jail? What?
For what? I don't know.
Hey, Adam, thanks for the super chat. If I were to get a 15-pound reality, should I compare it to the 16-pound reality? No. You should just move on with life. If you're going to change weight, just commit to it. You can send me a video if you want, Adam. I'll check it out, but it'll be more about how you throw it than the two balls. Trust me, 15-pound and 16-pound realities, me and Chris have thrown plenty of both. There isn't a large difference between a 15 and a 16 reality.
Pay Baker so you don't have to pay Tina. Reply to Tina. There you
go. No.
Key to staying married right there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is 14 pounds the new 15 pounds? No, 15 pounds is the new 14 pounds. Everybody's abandoning 14.
Yeah. Paul Fleming is the one exception to that rule that I've seen so far. And Brianna by results obviously is what it is. But when I watch her, the eyeball test doesn't show me much different. But obviously it's
Oh, you
successful.
just, I was about to say that's because
I
you
don't
didn't
see her
watch
that
her as
much,
much as
but
I did.
Fleming's rev rate right now is the highest I've seen it in 25 years. Probably 30 years, actually.
So we
And then
convinced him.
He's over 400 now for the first time in his whole life. It's kind of wild, actually. But
Do either of you guys, or did either of you guys switch? Yeah, we're both 15 now.
yeah, makes it easier to travel. I'll give it that. I don't know.
For me, it's like night and day. I can make it come back from spots I had never had any chance of with 16. Every now and again, I flat 10. I'm like, motherfucker. But then I remember I also flat 10 with 16 as well. It just felt less soul destroying when I did it with 16. Because the thing is if you flat 10 with 16, at least you know you've done all you can possibly do to strike. When you flat 10 with 15, you're like, well, I could throw a 16 at it. Best way to line up on a house shot. The best way that I think about lining up on a house shot is you should be able to, after you finish practice, be able to draw the lane on a piece of paper. You should know where the oil fit, where the main part of the oil is, where the dry spot is, and how far right you can get it to make it come back comfortably. And once you know that in your mind, it will become obvious about where you should play. So try to throw shots, some shots from a little in. Try throwing one as far right as you can so you get a good idea of where the wet is and the dry.
I'm a fan of throwing that first shot well right of where I think the house shot is. And if it hooks and hits the 4-pin, it hooks and hits the 4-pin. But once you know your ball hooks, now you can move and transition off of it. If you start in middle lane and it doesn't hook, I think we just naturally react a lot better to when your ball picks up and hooks versus when it skids too much.
Mm-hmm.
Once you see hook, you can move. If it doesn't hook, there's a problem.
Yeah. So like I say, for me, in general, on all patterns, that's when you want to, what you want to be able to do in your mind. You should be able to kind of draw the pattern out. Like this part of the lane is out of bounds. This is the ideal part of the lane I want to be in. If I miss here, it's probably going to miss left or right. Just so you have a good idea. But with the house shot, it's a little easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you'll hear guys talk about, well, maybe soon more about Baker box and those kind of things. If you have the tracers down lane, going around that tracer on the outside of that tracer is on the right is a pretty key thing. If you're left-handed, just throw it towards the gutter. But
with a purple or a black ball,
sort of tongue in cheek. Yeah, basically just a couple boards right of that tracer is a pretty good spot on basically every house shot. Yeah. If you have those, they're pretty far apart. You're going to need something in the middle there. Clone's pretty strong. It's going to be for medium heavy patterns. Tour Dynamics is going to be considerably straighter and smoother.
Yeah, I just wouldn't have those in the 2-ball deal.
Yeah, it's not a 2-ball. It's that's
like
probably a 4 to get to that.
Yeah, combo. Like for me, a Tour Dynamics isn't a small Arsenal ball. Like just in my opinion.
Yeah. All right.
From what I've seen, unless you're like really into like the IQ Tour, where you use that all the time, and then this can be a complement to an IQ Tour. Yeah. I don't necessarily see a ball like that being a small Arsenal ball. Did they have practice?
A lot of time on Bull TV in the booth.
But then Chuck made it. He made the top 18 this week, right? Chuck wasn't in the booth.
No, he was not in the booth. He's actually bowled very well several weeks this year. It's
if he was smart, once he wasn't in contention for the show, he should have started double dipping. Got the microphone while he was bowling his opponent. So what did you think on that shot? Did you think you fucked it up? Yeah. I got 6, Chuck. What do you reckon?
Bull TV has a little tighter language regulations than we do, so it might not have worked quite as well for Chuck there for a minute. But
Can we have a sorry? Go
we
on.
had a chat and while we were going on, and he picked my brain a little bit, and I think I told him what I thought, but I'm not sure I was right. So he was nice. He was nice to say thanks anyway. But yeah, this is a testament to how well I did on the tour this year. Yes, I bowled all the events.
Can we have a shout out to Walter Ray though? 575 the last two with the two hands.
Yeah, he was so far away I didn't even know. I didn't even know he did it. I knew he was doing it.
He made Dan Knowlton his bitch.
First game, and then he shot about 160 the second game, and I stopped paying attention to it.
Yeah, he bowled 300 game 5, 270. I think it was 275 game 6. And he said to Dan Knowlton, "But by now, you take that trophy home for 18th." He said,
"It's a smart man. You can wear that on a TV show. You can keep it together for a game."
No, but I think he was more worried about getting the rest of you guys in trouble. Chuck's an angel.
True that. That's what I meant. Well, we're sneaking up on it here, but
yeah, we can get out of here. What third ball would be great to add to those? I mean, like to be honest, dude, like you could almost put anything in there. Like I just think there isn't really a ball that's gonna bridge that gap. It's gigantic.
Yeah, there's almost everything. Phase 2, absolute gold label, exponent. There's a lot of balls that fit in between those two.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even IQ Ruby would be in between those two. So, well, yeah, this one fits in between all of them. Above it, below it, around it, in the middle of it, spare ball. You know,
yeah, they said on the booth that Chuck that Troy had 8 purple hammers. My only question was why.
I guess he just wanted the weight distribution in his car to be the same, because I don't know that they ever made it to the lanes.
Let's say what you do.
Maybe he has a second one he shoots spares with. I don't know. Yeah, that way he doesn't have to wait for it to come back. I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah. Anyway, good luck in your regional tomorrow. We didn't even get to the fact that the USB-C put 23 mils of oil on the lane, and we didn't even really break that down. But
no.
I only have 4. Okay.
He only needs 1.
Yeah, but 23 mils. I mean, come on, bro.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a little crazy. You know our stance on this show. That I'm all good. Actually, I mean, that's what they did in Hammond too for the PB50. They put 22 mils on the lane or whatever it was.
I bet.
And I'm great with it. But there has to be balls that match up to what's going on. And all the balls are stronger. It just doesn't, it's just tough.
Well, also just quickly, the ratio was 1.7. So that meant that like a third of the lane was oiled you weren't going to use.
Well, 2/3, a third on the outside of both sides. So
yeah. I mean,
well, maybe a little less than that because it wasn't super long. So
yeah,
but
it's just
the first six boards on both sides were fairly useless. So now you're
I just think that
mils.
Yeah, a bunch of guys who talk about this seem to don't understand the fact that when 23, not all 23 mils are the same. When it's 6-1, 23 mils is actually quite a lot of oil because all the oil's in one place. When it's 1-1, it's no oil because there's all the oil spread across the whole lane. But anyway.
When you can throw it to the right, a little bit of oil goes a lot longer than when you have to play through it all the way.
Well, also, when there's no oil in the front, you don't have any to the right because the balls burn up. So anyway, it's like they've got it's like they have shares in the urethane manufacturing. But we will move on. Thanks for watching. Thanks for showing out with the super chats. It was very appreciated. Celebrating Chris's victory. It seems like Chris needs to win another major because the chat revenue was great this. So let's win another one. TOC. You won the first World Series. Let's win the TOC. And then you'd only have to win a US Open and you'd be back to like the 3 that you've got on the real tour.
Something like that. There we go.
So anyway, you're now what? Does that make you like 3 majors ahead of Tommy Jones?
Something like that, yeah. He had about 4 titles more than he does. So give or take. But he's counting, you know.
Yeah, you better ramp that total up before he comes on. I've got a feeling that he might be quite useful his first year or so, and then
by then I might have a tough time fighting him off. So
yeah,
because even though he looks like he's 50 now, he's still got a ways to go before he gets there.
I was about to say I don't see that Tommy. I'm seeing him having a successful but not long PBA 50 career.
No, probably not. Probably not. But all right. Well, I'm off to Peru. I'm going to go watch Ryan Bowl, the U21 Pan American Games. We'll head out there Friday and watch that. So I'll miss the next couple of stops. And speaking of my traveling companion, among other things, yeah, looking forward to that. And then back at it again when in Sterling, Virginia, we head back to the Players Championship. So
yeah, we won't have a show on Thursday because I'll be driving or practicing or whatever I'll be doing. I'll be practicing for the Lucy. I'll be back on Tuesday, next Tuesday. Hopefully back at the 10 o'clock slot. All things being well, we'll have the Clone and Tour Dynamics videos up on Friday. I've got to do a lot of work on them tomorrow because I'm lazy and I'm an idiot. But yeah, dig in. Get those.
Yeah, I'll join you if I can, but we will be. Who knows? We travel international. It's hard to say what we might have or not.
Isn't Paddington Bear from Peru? I think he might be. Deepest dark Peru. But anyway, with that said, thank you to everyone, and we can do Chris's favorite bit.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for all the super chats. It was great being back on. We've been bowling every Tuesday and Thursday, so it feels like forever since we've done one of these. Until we see you next time, please support the sponsors that support us. Storm, Rotogrip, Banner Global, Kuwait Bowlers Mart, Fire Lake Bowling Center, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Forward. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy.
See you later. Thanks again.